If you want to be prepared for the fiery trial tomorrow, then obey God today. Just stop and think about it, what we know from the story. This had to have made a profound effect on these three men. That back in chapter 1, when they're taken captive to this foreign country, and all of this strangeness and alien life is given to them, Daniel stands up. And Daniel says, we'll learn their literature, we'll learn their language, we'll go along to some extent, but here is a line in the sand we will draw. When it comes to the king's meat and the king's wine, we will not defile ourselves. And they drew their line and they took their stand. And what did God do? God delivered them. God preserved them. In this powerful place of the king's palace, God watched over them. And God blessed them. And God helped them. And they saw the blessing of God in it. In chapter 2, they see a similar thing. They're on death row. They're supposed to die with all of the other wise men. And yet Daniel says, let's cry out to God. And they do, and they pray to God, and God gives the answer. And Daniel's able to interpret the dream. And they see what God does. They see the deliverance of God. They see the blessing of God. They've seen this over and over again. And now in chapter 3, when it comes down to them to stand, they have a history of knowing the fellowship of the fourth man. I've shared this story with you before, so I'll try to make it short. But I can remember by God's grace, I just tell you this just to praise God, because this was so profound in my life as a young man. I'll never forget the night our team had traveled to Des Moines for the state tournament. Unfortunately, not to play in it, but just to watch it. And we're coming back from the basketball boys state tournament in Des Moines, Iowa. You know what it's like riding in one of those old school buses? The windows are rattling, it's Iowa, so they're frosted over. And as we're traveling home on I-35 north, the guy behind me, one of my buddies on the team, he had bought a pornographic magazine while we were down in Des Moines. And he pulled that magazine out, and I'll never forget him, right behind me, he's right in my ear. He said, Duke, you don't want to see this. This is sin. Oh, this is sin. Oh, this is terrible. Oh, you don't want to see this. And all the guys on the team all gathered around him. Even my buddy that was sitting right beside me, he peeled back and he was back there with them as well. And I have to tell you, I was feeling kind of alone. Then the coach got up and came back. Everybody started to, kind of scamper around. And the coach, though, sat down in the seat next to the guy at the magazine. So it was me and the bus driver on this side of the magazine. But I'll tell you this. It was in that moment, as a young man wanting to follow Christ, God gave me the grace to say, I'm not going to bow down to your idol. It's crazy. This is 40-some years later. I'll never forget the fellowship of the fourth man that night. It's like he was sitting right beside me. It's like he put his arm around me and said, these flames won't consume you. They're not even going to touch you. I tell you what, if you've ever experienced the fellowship of the fourth man, the whole world could turn against you and it's of little consequence. That's how satisfying he is. That's how good he is. That's how powerful he is. Taste the fellowship of the fourth man. That leads us to our third resolve. Trust the sweet fellowship of Christ will be your protection and delight even in the fire. This is from Dale Ralph Davis again too, but he says this in his commentary: Jesus won't keep you from the fire, but he will find you in it. Whether it be in your loss or your loneliness, whether it be in the doctor's exam room or in the funeral home, the fourth man will find you. And he will be with you